Hey there, fellow fans. Fan with too much time here. Very happy to say that I'm not on the brink of falling to pieces on the end of this one. Luckily, I didn't have to stay up nearly as late. I can proudly say that it is only about 10:30, and that means that as I'm finishing this...
It's 1 a.m. Here. I'm recording this at 1 a.m. Yeah.
This video, it is much earlier than I'm used to finishing it, which is much closer to like 3 or something. So I've heard what you guys have to say about the polls, and I'll go ahead and keep the polls just to myself at this point. And we'll go ahead and see if we can't find other ways to interact with the story in Season 2, but we'll keep it out of the survival polls range for now. So, with that being said, let's move on to what you're probably here for, the Q&As. So, let's go ahead and look. And take a look, see. Alright.
Is this game like a VR kind of game? What happened to... what was the game he was playing last week? I forgot now. I forgot. Cyberpunk, yes. What happened to Cyberpunk? That was still fun and interesting, you know, seeing that gameplay. But this is cool too, I guess. I'm not really good with VR games, so yeah. But it's fun to watch other people play it.
Oh, yes, I remember this. Okay, let's go ahead and address this right now. So this is being mostly addressed to let's see here. What's your name? Eat Your Soul, the Num Nums. So Eat Your Soul. I am very happy that you are here with us on this story, and I am very happy that you seem to be enjoying at least most of the story I have to tell, despite some of your misgivings. That being said, I must ask that you stop spamming my chat and my comment section with this argument of yours that the warp and the force are not the same thing. I respect the opinion that you have. I ask that you respect mine and understand that I'm not even writing for the canon, so it's not like a very big contentious issue. But none of the arguments that I've seen you make have as yet convinced me that I should reconsider that the Force is simply the Sea of Souls without the War in Heaven having destroyed it and corrupted it and turned it all to the dark side. Now, I will go ahead and respect you with at least 3 responses to why I do believe that it is that the Force is the netherworld of the Force, but whether these responses convince you or not, I do ask that you respect my opinion and just let this drop. So, firstly, the Force has a location. Like, there is a place that the Force resides. It's called the netherworld of the Force. And it's very significant that this place exists, for many reasons. For one thing, the souls of the dead seem to reside here. For another, time and space are bent and manipulated here. The Ang-Ti monks travel through this place using an actual form of manual warp travel to move almost instantaneously between 2 locations. And that's how their ships work. They don't have hyperdrives, they just use this force technique.
If this isn't the warp, then I don't know what is. If the Force and the warp are not the same thing, then I don't know.
In addition to that, Darth Vader goes through a great deal of trouble and even resurrects an ancient Darth Lord, Lord Momin, who, by the way, you should definitely look him up if you don't know who Lord Momin is. He is...
Wait a minute. Hold up. Darth Vader resurrected someone? And it was not his wife? Oh, okay.
Definitely my favorite Sith Lord from the new Disney canon, and he is just fantastically well done. Also, the way that Darth Momin describes the Force, because Darth Momin is in love with the dark side. Like, he has a romantic love with the dark side, and he commits atrocities and genocides as courted, like almost as like pieces of art that are meant to be witnessed by the dark side and almost courted by the dark side. So the things he has to say and his illuminations on what the dark side is in the Disney canon only lead me to further believe that it is the nascent consciousness of things that will become dark gods. But to leave that aside for now, Darth Vader uses and employs Lord Moment's help to create an actual portal directly into the warp. I mean, the netherworld of the Force. And once he goes within it, he's able to see the past, the future, his own soul, the souls of the dead. He does battle with entities there. He actually encounters Padme's soul there, and Padme's soul is unable to recognize him as Anakin Skywalker. And several other things happen as well. All of these things lead me to believe that this is simply the Sea of Souls. And that's like big reason number one. Big reason number two is that there is a webway running through it. So in Star Wars Rebels, we are introduced to a temple of the Jedi that is made using these very bizarre depictions and images of the Father, the Son, and the Daughter, who are very powerful Force wielders. They are...
Yes, I think I know what he's talking about. Oh my gosh. I remember Ezra was in this webway, right? He was running in this webway, like it's totally black, and there is a walk path that's got highlighted white lines on it, so that, you know, anyone that's in this webway is able to know where to navigate. And he saved Ahsoka's life when Ahsoka was fighting against Darth Vader in another abandoned Sith temple, I think. And they both were running away from Darth Sidious because he was using some sort of force lightning or fire in the webway to try and kill them. And, you know, they got separated. So essentially this webway not only can access, you know, different places across the known universe, but it can also go through time, you know, because Ezra saved Ahsoka's life when she was fighting against Darth Vader. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
What are they called again? They're not the Wills. They are They're very powerful beings. The name escapes me right now, but it's not a name that's very hard to find. I really should. They're the ones. There's actually another name for them too. They made Center Point Station and other things like that. But the point is that this temple, once opened, doesn't lead into a structure as you would think, but rather it leads into a space between spaces. When this space between spaces is shown to us, it looks a lot like what you might imagine a depiction of the webway, except maybe not made by the old ones, but what it might look like. It is pathways linking not only different places together across the galaxy, but different times as well. Clearly not so much like the webway in that fashion, but of course not made by the old ones or the Eldar.
And you know, it also reminds me of the illuvions that were created by the elves in Dragon Age. Dragon Age Inquisition in particular focuses on this form of magical technology created by the elves, where they are able to, you know, access any point in Thedas using these gates that take them to a space within a space, just like the webway, and they're able to, you know, take any destination that has a illuvion gate. So yeah, it also reminds me of that.
This place allows you to not only traverse time and space, but really clearly use gateways to teleport from one place to another. Not only that, but the location that this webway is built inside of is very clearly a tamed and calm section of the nether world of the Force. All very tremendously interesting, and I encourage you to look this up because I think that it will change your current perspective on what the Force is and what it might be. Now I'll say this, maybe when the Jedi say the Force, their definition of that encompasses more things than the warp, and the warp only encompasses a limited amount of things, and maybe in that way they're not quite the same thing. But certainly when you say the warp, and you say the Force, there's a great deal of overlap at least. Finally, the very last reason I will say empirically why I believe that the Force is almost identical to the Warp as the Sea of Souls is because in Star Wars Legends, not just canon, which has everything I've spoken of up till now has all been about canon. In Legends, the Netherworld of the Force is also very clearly mentioned, referenced, traversed, and explored. In fact, much more so than in the current canon, which is doing so just very clearly and on screen. But in Legends, we had the Netherworld, and in the Netherworld of the Force, you had locations. And in one of these locations, you had a place that was literally called the Chaos. And what the Chaos was a section of the Force that had been completely ruined by the dark side, where all of the howling dark spirits of the Sith who attempted immortality reside. Not only that, but several dark entities come from this place. And these entities have been known to possess people. And like when they possess people, they don't do nice things. They usually kill everyone in the ship that with the person they possessed, and then kill the whole crew and themselves. Clearly nascent demonic entities.
And also, there was a particular episode in Clone Wars where Master Yoda went to the homeworld of the Sith, if I'm not mistaken, and he was experiencing, going through this chaos, this Force chaos where, dead Sith Lords and their acolytes and whoever else, exist in this realm, and they tried to convert Master Yoda into becoming one of them. They were showing him visions of what's going to happen to the Jedi, what's going to happen to him, and they just tried to break down his soul, his confidence, and just to control him in the end. But it never worked because it's Master Yoda.
They're not, meant to be that way from the perspective of the writers who wrote that. That is like very clearly what they can be and what they are for the sake of this of this writing. So those are like some of the big reasons why I believe the things that I believe. And honestly, right now, those things aren't really going to change. I understand that you see the Warp as being fundamentally unnatural, and that what the Emperor emits is different. To that I would say, that's just the dichotomy between the light side and the dark side. The dark side, as explained by George Lucas on camera, and again, please check me on this and please look this up, and we can debate this. If I'm wrong on any of this, please check me, show me that I'm wrong, and that will change my opinion and will put me in a different place. But George Lucas says that the dark side is not emotions, it isn't even like feeling bad, really. The dark side is imbalance. The dark side is extremity. The dark side is just the Force out of balance. The light side isn't necessarily goodness and all that is good. It's just balance. It is just balance. So when you see the Emperor emit the Force out, he could just be emitting balance. And balance is doing what it always does to chaos. It's destroying it. It's utterly wrecking it. And that's the dichotomy that you're seeing as so far as my theory goes. The Warp is unnatural. It is unbalanced. It is chaos. And George Lucas says that is what the dark side is. It is unbalanced, it is chaos, and it is unnatural, and that is why it is definably evil and needs to be stopped. You can't double-side it. That's why the concept of Grey Jedi doesn't work in the new canon, because they've really doubled down on George Lucas's interpretation of what the light side and dark side are supposed to actually be. So, those are like, I think I've gone on at length about why it is that I believe that to be the case. So yeah, and again, the last thing I'll say about that is that you mentioned here that there's a low case of mutation in the galaxy. That's just because the Warp isn't the Warp yet. It's the Sea of Souls. The Warp was ruined into becoming what it is. And you can actually see Force mutations occur in Star Wars. In places where the dark side is powerful, creatures become larger and more fearsome and naturally bloodthirsty. Not only that, but they often evolve into distinct species.
And you can also just look at those who follow the dark side of the Force. How they change as well. Just look at Lord Sidious. We saw his true self, after he had the battle with Mace Windu. We saw him with the different wrinkles on his face and the bright, reddish orange eyes, and he just looked hideous. He looked horrible, and many of the other masters of the dark side, they also look very bad. It's just something that happens to those who follow that side of the Force. Yeah.
This is how we got dark side dragons. Not only that, but the Sith themselves experiment by exposing creatures to the raw dark side of the Force through a process called Sith alchemy. And the creations they create look like mutations, like heavily powerful Sith spawn, warp spawned mutations. So I encourage you to look up Sith alchemy and look at the results of that, and look at how Sith alchemy works. It's sorcery, and it's chaos sorcery at that, and it has a very chaos sorcery effect. All these things are present, they're just not nearly as profuse. They aren't anywhere near as common, and that's because in Star Wars there isn't anywhere near as devastating a continuous state of conflict as is present in the 40K universe. And with that, I'll go ahead and put it down. You don't have to agree with me, but I would ask that you respect my opinion and just let it drop. So here we go. Moving on to the first proper Q&A that has the Q&A in the title. Is Captain Rex in this... oh, by the way, this is the Anime Guy RWBY Critics Podcast. Q&A. Is Captain Rex dead in this episode? No, he is not. You'll actually notice that when Ahsoka tells Captain Rex what her intention is with the Tech Priest, he asks her if she would like him to tag along with her, and she decides that it's best if he stays and secures the bridge to make sure it can't be taken out from underneath them. Because if she's gone and Rex is gone, that sort of leaves the command structures a little debilitated, and she'd like to make sure the bridge stays in their control. So Rex is on the bridge, and he's safe. Is there going to be a point in the war where the Gar start recruiting normal people? And, okay, yeah. Most likely, yes, but you have to remember that the Grand Army of the Republic, rather the Republic itself, is by design, by Palpatine's design, caught up in gridlock, which is an actual tactic that real-world dictators use to convince people that republics don't work. They'll get either a party or enough power within the system to cause gridlock, and then just choke the system until people agree to succumb to dictatorship. And that's a huge part of what Palpatine did to seize control of the Republic. That's working against him now, because it means that common sense decisions like the one you're talking about take much longer to come to and make. But certainly you will see elements of that, if nothing else, especially going into Season 2. Let me see here. Did you have any more? Nope, that looks like about it. So, yep, those are those questions, and I'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Hatter. Alright, hey there, Hatter. Q&A. With all the magic Imperial Psychers used in battle, I'm interested to see how the Jedi will respond. Okay, so, two things about this. One, the Jedi are used to finding other Force cultures that can do things with the Force that they either haven't discovered or don't think is ethical. So, throwing fireballs and things like that is actually something they have seen the Shapers of Kor do. And I might be saying that name wrong. They're the Shapers of something, certainly. They might not be the Shapers of Kor, but the Shapers are a Force cult that exists somewhere in the galaxy that the Jedi came in contact with and have recorded in their archives. And they can throw fireballs and effectively earthbend and do all kinds of elemental abilities. So that wouldn't freak them out so much. Like, what freaks them out about the Imperials isn't the fact they're a Force tradition that can do different things from them, because they encounter that quite a lot, actually. It's not nearly as rare as you might think. What freaks them out is that they're so Sith-like and they're helping this empire, and they're really violent. And of course, the things that their abilities are able to do it are really heinous. But they're not very shocked by the very act and phenomenon in and of itself. As for how are the Jedi going to react to all the trauma they're getting hit with, 2 words: flash burn. And Ayla herself, funny enough, is particularly skilled in this technique and has used it before.
But, you know, don't you... I don't know. Flash burning your memories or trying to suppress your memories, it's just... I think it's a negative, you know, kind of situation for you. Because you need that pain and suffering. You need to experience that and to find a way to overcome it, you know. Don't try and shift it away. Don't try and put it away. Face it so that you can beat it. And, you know, should anything like this happen again where you are attacked mentally with, you know, strong images, with strong emotions, you'll be able to control it a bit more better. But yeah, that's just me. Yeah. And you might miss some important key things if you suppress or you erase your memories. Yeah.
To save her mind from things. Flash burning in, and I encourage you to go ahead and type in flash burn Jedi power into your YouTube search bar and go ahead and just look it up. Flash burn is a power that is available to most Jedi, though not that many I think are trained in it, but it's actually not that hard to do. That is simply a telepathic power where a Jedi performs a self-administered mind wipe. The differences are that it's much cleaner, it's much safer, and the memory isn't really gone, it's just locked away so the Jedi can go and deal with it later. And this is actually made specifically to counter Sith, who would use these kinds of technique to destroy a Jedi's focus and connection to the light side. And the way that the Jedi would counter it is by just putting it away, forgetting it, thereby negating it, and dealing with it later once the battle is over.
Okay, alright. So there is like a time limit for how long you can suppress these memories. Eventually they will come out. Okay. Alright.
Now, if a Jedi does not choose to deal with it, then after a few weeks, this becomes a real problem and begins to completely destroy their connection to the Force by having this unresolved issue in their subconscious. However, in the moment, this is how Jedi are able to get around it. So, you will actually see Jedi being able to use this technique to keep going far beyond what they would have been able to after they've been hit with certain traumatizing attacks. And you will also see Ayla use this because Ayla, like I stated before, has actually canonically used this technique, I think twice, but at least once for certain. So moving on from that, let me see. Excuse me. Daemon Host. Okay, so yes, there will be some chaos corruption in this galaxy at some point. You know, it wouldn't quite be 40K if we didn't include some of it, though. Include some of that in here. Though, do keep in mind a few things. Firstly, if a daemon gets loose in the Force, like they kill this daemon host and he got loose and he's in the Force now, like the warp, most daemons are going to die very quickly in this environment. Because this environment, unless they're able to find the chaos and reside within it very quickly, is like toxic to them. They are daemons that are used to existing in a warp that is so dark side that even to exist in neutrality would destroy them. Now, there are exceptions to this. If a daemon is powerful enough, then it can hold itself out and just gradually get weaker and weaker as opposed to be destroyed. Of course, it would be rushing to find the chaos or rushing to find a new host by which it can separate itself from this environment. If you drop the whole Chaos God in, it would be totally different. It would be a very, very different situation. The Chaos God would be weaker than it would be in Warhammer by technicality, but in practicality and in the expression of its power, it would be many millions of times stronger because its hands aren't tied by the other three. So that's how that kind of dynamic would end up working out. But insofar as normal daemons are concerned, it won't be as instantaneously over as you might think, because the daemons will be dampened by the fact that the warp and the Force here are not super corrupted and tainted as of yet. In fact, as opposed to going out on the street and just preaching words of chaos to people that would just corrupt them in their sleep, because the warp is just intuitively that way in Warhammer 40K, the initial things that daemons and demonic forces would actually try to do in the world, most likely, is in addition to spreading a legit faith that is spread through the normal methods that could be conducive to chaos, what they would be doing is trying to create more genocide, more actual chaos, more catastrophes, more death, more suffering, more extremity, because that would go a long way into changing this environment. Because for Daemons of Chaos jumping from the warp in 40K to the Sea of Souls in Star Wars, it would be very close to what it would be like for a saltwater fish to jump into a freshwater setting all at once. They'd be lucky to survive, and they'd have to be pretty powerful to do it. With the exception, of course, being that there's a good chance, not a good chance, there is a chance they find the chaos before they are destroyed, and they could reside comfortably within that section of the warp, though they would also be tremendously limited by it and only able to have presence in places where the dark side is very strong. And you see locations like that in Star Wars, such as the cave where Luke had to face Darth Vader Luke in the trials that he was doing with Yoda in the second movie. But there you go. So let me see here. Will we see Ahsoka and the Electro Police again, mixing blue and orange, fucking...
What do you mean by that? No.
Heretic! Fucking heretic! God damn it, you people. These fucking horn dogs. I better not see any of this, okay? Like, straight up. This idea...
Guys, how can you even think about that? How does it even conceive into your mind to think about that? It's Ahsoka, guys. And C-82, like, really? No.
Of Ahsoka getting together with the Electro Priest better stay in a wholesome ship and nothing else, because the very suggestion of anything else would make the Electro Priest himself violently ill. And Ahsoka, I will remind you, this is still the Clone Wars. What is she, like 16? Get your minds out of the gutter, guys. Come on, let's not have that. Freaking anything down here. Alright, let's see. Next question. Crypto Penguin. Hey there. Q&A. Says we probably won't see Mandalorian's view come into the story. I'll just ask for... Okay. So the Mandalorians. I don't actually want to get too much into how they are, because that's going to come into play in Season 2, and I think it'll be more fun for you guys to just wait and see the execution of that. So I'm going to leave that there. You'll see, but trust me, it's going to be interesting to see how Mandalorian culture mixes, what they try to do with the Imperium, what the Imperium tries to do with them, and where all of that turns out. There you go. Let's go on to your second question then. Also, just for some clarification, we know that there's about 400, 500 warships of the Imperium, but I remember you saying that there were refugee ships. There are literally billions of tugboats and carriers that are just civilian ships coming with us to the Star Wars galaxy. Literally billions. And I know that there are going to be people who are saying, billions? Then that means that there's trillions of humans coming. And yeah, there are. And that's not going to put a dent in the Star Wars population. There's literally, like there should be at least, literally quintillions of people living on Coruscant. And by that logic, because Axum is only supposed to be like marginally smaller than Coruscant and more or less the same thing, there should be quintillions of people living on Axum right now as this battle goes on. Star Wars, like, I don't intend to use stupidly small, unrealistic numbers when it comes to the populations of hive cities and ecumenopolises in Star Wars and 40K. So when you hear trillions, yes, trillions, because I need to have hive worlds get built, I need to have forge worlds get built, I need to have fortress worlds get built, I need to have shrine worlds get built, I need to give the Imperium a little section of space that's going to look like the Imperium and allow Imperial culture to persist without it being immediately diluted and destroyed by immersion into the Star Wars universe. And for that, I'm going to need trillions of people, because trillions is not a lot. Like, you think it's a lot, it sounds like a lot. Trillions of people could all go on one planet. In fact, there may be even more than trillions, who knows, maybe hundreds of trillions. There's gonna be enough people to fill out these planets and give the Imperium a little foothold, and most of these ships are gonna be dismantled to be used as materials to build these cities and these places and these facilities up with. But yes, there are trillions. I'm sorry if I sound a little hostile, because I have actually, like, back when I had this out on the discussions tab, I had some actually really hostile responses to me asserting this. And I understand why it's there, and I understand why the human mind can't really understand and wrap itself around those numbers. I do get that, but understand me and believe me when I tell you that there are trillions, and there are that there are billions of these ships. There are trillions of people coming with them, and that is not in any way going to destabilize the population of the Star Wars universe. Galactic populations are simply not budged by numbers like that. It's just...
And, you know, it just reminds me of the time when AFanWithTooMuchTime was speaking about increasing the numbers of clones that the Grand Army of the Republic have. Because I think he said something about the canon amount of clone troops was just simply not enough to encompass the protection and the conquest of the entire galaxy. So he said that he was going to crank it up a bit more in terms of how many clones the Galactic Republic actually have. So yeah, it's okay, it's understandable for me. I don't know about you guys, but I'm okay with this. Yeah.
Not the case. So, moving on from that. And again, no hostility towards you, Crypto Penguin. This is more pent-up stuff from me. So, in any case, moving on from that question. Spook! Hey, Spook! Alright, let's see. These are the questions that you didn't get to post last time. Alright, so let's go ahead and start looking at these. Titans, especially the Emperor-class Titans, have very wobbly numbers, as low as 40 meters tall in some, as high as 200 plus meters in others, and you prefer them at 500 meters. There are depictions of Titans using mountains as cover as they fire at each other. That's what I want to go with.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
Titans are literally called god machines. They are remnants of the dark age of technology when mankind can time travel and literally fire chronal beams that would make you occupy time and space in like freaking odd ways and destroy you in odd soul-destroying ways and stuff. Like literally, they come from a time where like we should be able to like, genetically engineer Godzillas for fun as like pets for our equivalent of High Lords during the dark age of technology. So,
guys, hold up. There's a big moth in here. Let me just pause. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back.
I definitely side with the largest of the Titans being very, very large. That is very 40K to me. I feel no reason nor have any logic to soften that or dumb it down. And yeah, like Emperor class Titans are enormous because they are the biggest Titans. So I like that. I can't give you a full dead-on answer for certain because I'd need to see scales to know quite how big 500 meters tall is, so I don't want to say anything too silly. But I feel that I at least in spirit agree with that statement. Alright, so let's see here. Imperial warships. They can go 20 to 80% the speed of light. Custodial white scars shifted in 80-95%. Okay, and they're going to have what constant speed or variable speed? Okay, so you're asking if the different ships in the Imperial Navy will have variable speeds. They will have variable speeds. In fact, if you go and you look up the list of Imperial ships that have come along from the Sectic sector in the in Battlefleet Zectech, what you will find is that there are actually like a murder class and an aggressor class cruisers. I could be saying those names wrong. So the point that they're supposed to be very fast, large ships. They are there, and their definitions will not be negated. They certainly will be able to move that fast. That being said, it will be the case that most of the time you see the Imperial ships moving as a single unit in cohesion with each other, and that's because it simply works better to move in formation and to fire in that kind of way, and to not move like too quickly into the enemy's firing position without having other ships to help spread the enemy fire out. But when ships need to, they will break from their standard speeds of moving alongside with the rest of the navy, and be broken into battle groups of faster ships, or occasionally simply use their own personal ship speed in the midst of combat to execute combat maneuvers.
I don't know why, but as he's talking about that, I'm just thinking about Stellaris, the PC space strategic, kind of game, where you build your vessels, you build ships, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, corvettes. Some are faster than others, but when you build a fleet, they move as one. You don't find that one ship is moving so fast and leaving all the others way behind. They usually move as a cohesive unit into battle. So yeah, when he talks about that, saying that the battle fleet Zectec of the Imperium of Man, they like to work as a cohesive unit, fighting against an enemy, instead of having one lone ship that is using its speed, to its advantage against the enemy. They would rather stick together and use their overwhelming force against the enemy. So yeah, kind of reminds me of Stellaris. Yeah.
And you will see that. So, in direct response to that question, all the ships will have different variable speeds according to what kind of ship class they are. While they will tend to move together in units and blocks, they will certainly not be tied down to one constant speed. Will the Imperium be able to get the Star Wars communication FTL technologies? Okay, so the problem with the Imperium and adapting a lot of the Star Wars technologies is going to come down to that their computers are too advanced. And I mean the Star Wars computers. A Navicomputer is basically a droid brain. It's just a droid brain that isn't interested in talking to you. It's only interested in plotting out Navicomputers. But it is a digital thinking computer that is really smart and really complicated. And when the mechanics get a hold of it, they're going to be like, okay, to use hyperdrives, we have to use Navicomputers, but they're too smart to use. So they're either going to have to dumb them down and make them much more like the KOTOR computers, like Navicomputers that you saw, which were way more restricted, or they're going to have to work a different way around them, or figure out a way of creating a servitor, like a hyperdrive servitor, that would be able to perform those calculations in place of a droid, or anything that's too smart and purely mechanical.
You know what? I say if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it, or don't try and improve it. The warp drive is fine. It's fine. There's no problem with it. In fact, it's far better in this galaxy than, the previous home galaxy of the Warhammer 40K universe. The warp travel here is so calm and peaceful. So yeah, if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. Don't try and improve it. Yeah.
And this is going to apply to a lot of their technologies.
Oh yes, and I don't think they're restricted to the to the trade routes of hyperspace. So they can literally pop in and out in various locations across the galaxy. They don't need hyperdrive. Yeah. In fact, that will further constrain them. Yeah.
Including their communications technology. Let me see, what else? Will the Star Wars faction be able to get Imperial weaponry? Yes. Anything that they can pick up and take, they will get access to. Now, will it be easy for them to get a hold of a Space Marine's corpse? No. If they get a hold of a Space Marine's corpse and the Space Marines count that that they're short a corpse, will the Space Marines just let them have a Space Marine corpse without trying to get it back? No. But provided they can get one, and provided they can keep it and pull it into a lab, they will be able to pull it apart and start figuring it out. I know that a lot of people criticize the Star Wars galaxy as having stagnant technological growth. However, every single time that you see literally any Star Wars Science Initiative begin, it ends with some amount of success. It never ends in failure, and it never takes a very long time. The moment that a Star Wars Science Division gets put together with a goal, they very, very quickly begin producing results. And the only time you hear about slow results is when you're hearing about really unreasonable Imperial timetables. The fact that the Death Star got researched and put together in the course of a little over 20 years is mind-blowing. The fact
and the Death Star 2 and the Starkiller base, you know, and the, what do they call it, the Zeiston? I think that's what they call it. That Star Destroyer that has the, you know, Death Star kind of weapon that can blow up planets. You know, so stagnancy in the Star Wars universe, I don't think that exists really. Technology just keeps on evolving, adapting, and becoming more complicated, and yeah, it's still pretty much, you know, the same outcome in terms of displays of power, but you know, the format, how it was created, how it is packaged, it's always evolving. Yeah.
That the Death Star was made even bigger and more powerful with only like right afterwards, and then basically rebuilt, is even more nuts. The fact that they then took the technology and remade it into something that could fire through hyperspace and literally make it into a planet-sized battle station should speak for itself. And of course, that's not even going into the fact that, again, Star Wars is the same universe where you can solve magic with science by curing the Rakghoul plague with just plain old medicine. So, suffice to say that the stagnancy argument doesn't hold a lot of water with me. What it seems to be more the case is that the Star Wars galaxy inherited a lot of weapons from the Rakatan Empire, reverse engineered a lot of it, and then just kind of sat on it without anyone in particular, for various reasons, wanting to increase the power of these weapons. For the Jedi and the Sith, it's very obvious why. And the Jedi and the Sith are actually always technologically advancing, but they don't advance the way that you would think. They advance with the Force, like with Force weapons. So the Sith make all these Force doomsday devices, Jedi make lightsaber rifles, and that's kind of how their technology advances, and all that stuff is extremely potent and extremely great. But also extremely real, and it also speaks against the idea that the Star Wars galaxy is technologically stagnant. It's just weird. So, moving on from that. Finally, my last question relates to the uncountable factions of the Imperium. Okay. Will the Crimson Razors get a dossier the same way the Skywatch did? Maybe, but probably not. The Crimson Razors don't have as much to say as the Skywatch do. They were a very, very, very melee... No, my bad. They were a very basic Crimson's... They were a very basic Imperial Fists chapter until they experienced several events that have made them enamored with the Black Templars, and specifically with Helbrecht and the way that he runs things. Because of this, they have begun to culturally emulate within their chapter the structure and policies of the Black Templars. That is probably the most unique thing about them. Aside from that, they're pretty by the numbers. They may get dossiers, but the dossiers would not be of the same length because there simply isn't nearly as much deviancy in the Crimson Razors as there is within the Skywatch. So let me see here. What are the chapters, regiments, and covenants present within the forces of the Imperium? Okay, off the top of my head, and as quickly as I can, because already I can already feel that this is gonna that I've been talking for a good minute now, right? So the chapters that are present in full force, for certain, are the Crimson Razors, the Skywatch, and the Tempered Hands. The chapters that are here represented by fire teams, squads, or maybe less, are the Blood Angels. My bad. I'm going to be very vague about this because I actually have a list, but I don't have that list here in front of me, so I don't want to missay names or give you people that aren't actually here, or miss people on purpose that are here. So, I mean, not on purpose, but by accident. Blood Angel successors are here. There are Ultramarine successors here. Elements of the Salamanders chapter made it here. There are elements of the, what do you call them? Red Scars, or the Crimson Scars. I forget what their names are now. My brain is just farting on that. They're here. There are Ultramarine successors here. I don't know if I said that already. There are quite a few. They equal out to about a little over 800 Space Marines total, so they're almost a chapter unto themselves, but they're all little bits and pieces from other chapters that were sent here. And of course, that was all orchestrated by the Dark Eldar, who were hoping to really, really wipe the board and mop up very nice with this execution of this. So they both made sure all these messages got to where they were going. They embellished them for people who needed embellishing. They convinced people of the strategic importance of the Psychic sector for the people who thought that would matter. And by one means or another, they helped to assemble this absolutely colossal force. Until Gilliman ruined it by saying, hey, that's an obvious trap, everybody get out of there. So, moving on from that, regiments. We have, obviously, the things you've seen, Krieg, Cadians. There's also going to be Vostroyan Firstborn who are here. There's also at least a small element of the Iron Legion here. A fair amount of Calambian Patriots and other Zectec sector homebrew regiments as well. Oh yes, and Ratlings. You'll see that there are some Ratlings here as well. So, the convents. There's only two. I assume that by convents you mean orders of Sisters of Battle. So there's only two orders that are present here. There's the Order of the Martyred Lady, of Our Martyred Lady, the Order of Our Martyred Lady. They're very popular, they're very widespread. They're probably the most widespread order of the Sisters of Battle. And then there is an order that is native to the Zectec sector. They are the Order of the Emperor's Bride. And they're fairly different in their specific doctrine and the reason of their formation, but they are very, very similar in their combat doctrine and the way and reason they fight. So that's them there. Also, several forces of 3 different Forge Worlds are here that are fully cohesive, that managed to evacuate almost their entire planet's populations. So those Forge Worlds are present here in force, representing the Mechanicus, but I don't have their names on hand. But they're here, and there's 4 of them, so there you go. Let me see. What are the numbers of the Imperial forces in the Star Wars galaxy? Okay, I'm going to have to put a pin in that. I had that written down somewhere, but I don't have access to that right now. So we're just going to have to move on to the next one. Honestly, you should probably just wait and see, and it'll be revealed to you through the story. Are there more Inquisitors in the Star Wars galaxy, or is this Inquisitor the only one present? So, I'm a bit hesitant to reveal that. There are other elements of the Inquisition present here that are not under the direct command of the Inquisitor that you saw. That being said, whether or not... where was I? I'm sorry, I drifted off. Whether or not Inquisitor Tarweiler is the only one present... you'll have to wait and see if he's the actual only Inquisitor here, but I can confirm that there are other Inquisitorial forces that were present within the fleet that do not belong to him. So those will be interesting as they reveal themselves. Regarding the Inquisitor we saw, what is his Ordo and what caused his drastic change? Okay, so he's not quite as shark looking as the picture would have you believe, because of course that picture doesn't actually represent him. It's just one of the closest things you could find to him. He has shark teeth. He has very sharp shark-like teeth. He's got very smooth skin, and he's bald. He's also got black eyes. Aside from that, though, he does look fairly human. Not that looks tremendously human. He did that on purpose. This Inquisitor in particular is a very big fan of surgical augmentation, especially for the purposes of appearance. Whether he's going into disguise, or whether he's going into diplomacy, or whether he's doing what he's normally doing, which is intimidating the shit out of Imperial forces, for which he prefers this kind of appearance, he has no qualms about going under the knife to accomplish this. He understood very early on that Jedi are only strong when they're serene, and the moment they start losing their serenity and start losing their cool, they get drastically weaker, and it becomes much harder for them to tell the future to survive, and they begin falling. So, because of this, he altered his appearance to facilitate this. Not that he wouldn't keep this appearance normally either. He would keep something like this on almost all the time, because he loves to scare Imperials into helping to obey him. I mean, his blood is pure, it's all just surgery, so he can get a blood test immediately to show that he has no elements of mutation. His rosette is legitimate, he definitely is an Inquisitor and he can prove it. And so when you're dealing with a guy who looks like a mutant or a monster, but he is in fact your boss, it puts you in a kind of off guard that most people simply cannot handle, and it makes them very easy for him to handle, and that's why he does that. As for his Ordo, he is not Ordo Xenos Hereticus or Malleus. He is actually of an entirely different Ordo. People often forget that it's only about 40% of the Ordos are Xenos, Malleus, and Hereticus, and the other 60% is divided between an uncountable amount of both sub-orders of the previously mentioned orders and completely independent minor orders that are either not well known, utterly secret, or simply not widely supported. He is a member of such an order. So, let's see. And I think that's all your questions. Happy to answer your questions, Spook. So let's see where we're at. Yeah, so it's getting kind of late. I'm going to go ahead and answer one more Q&A, unless it's very, very long, then I'll only answer part of it. And then after that, I think we'll go ahead and call it a day. So, let's look. Let's see. I see. Spook, you have the next Q&A as well. Let's see. Can you...
Man, Spook is everywhere.
please make the Electro Priest X Ahsoka ship... Baka, stop it! Stop it! No. What is this? The Krieger and his harem. I'm not reading this. Stop. Ship whatever you like, okay? But keep it safe for work at the very least, okay? God. Just...
Like, what do you guys see in that... In these two being together? Why? Oh gosh.
Ship clean. Let's see. Q&A, and this is for Nerali Bolateev, I think is what your name is how you say it. And you have a Russian picture, as your name would suggest. Let's see. Do you think that GW will ever truly bring back Malal Malice? No, I don't. And the reason is entirely because of legal reasons. If they ever brought back Malal or Malice, and if they did it before the author who made it up dies, then the author who made up Malal and Malice can claim creative ownership of Malal and Malice. And because Malal and Malice are thereby his property and will cause legal issues and profit sharing from GW, the chances of them ever doing that are next to nil. Now, if they could be fucking cool and just work something out nice and legal with this guy and surprise us, it would be amazing. But I don't foresee that, as much as I do hope for it. How will Palpatine and Dooku react to the Imperial's usage of the dark side of the Force? I'd imagine a bit of anger and fear, but most importantly curiosity on how they can learn to use it. So, Palpatine and Dooku, you know what? I'm actually not going to answer that one. You guys will have a lot of fun seeing their reactions without me having to tell you anything. And you'll see most of that in Season 2. But trust me, you're gonna find quite a bit of enjoyment in that, and I don't want to spoil any of it. So, moving on to the next one. How large is the Republic army assaulting Axum? I'd reckon a couple million clones. I actually have a number for this. In fact, I may have even mentioned these numbers in The Republic Strikes Back when they first arrive. So I'd check back there to see if I have numbers written down, and if I do, and you're having trouble hearing me say them, they should be in the closed captions and the subtitles. But I can't answer that right this moment because I simply don't have all the numbers in front of me at the moment. Let me see here. How large is the Republic Army? Oh no, my bad. I already read that. Wouldn't most of the more humanoid aliens in Star Wars Galaxy be classified as abhumans at least? Clearly, most of them should logically share a lot of human DNA if they're able to breed with humans and produce offspring. Hell, if the fucking Beastmen are not considered mutants, barely, then most of the differences are merely superfluous to the Imperials. Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes and no. So, because of the Eldar, Imperials are used to... Because of the Eldar and Tau, Imperials are used to there being aliens that can look humanish and not be human at all. And to be clear, from everything we've seen, despite the fact that you could screw an Eldar and it would all work apparently, though you wouldn't produce hybrids, the Eldar are completely different from Imperials. In fact, like from Imperials, they're completely different from humans. It is almost implied that Eldar are much more slug-like on the inside than they are like primates. So there really shouldn't be any compatibility there. That being said, this compatibility that you're speaking of, it will be eventually noticed. By whom it will be noticed, and in what way, and what will happen, and what classification that will take on, you will have to wait and see. Know that I have definitely already thought of that far in advance. It is definitely already written into the larger script. You will definitely see results from that. And there are Imperials who are both in favor, or rather not in favor. There are both Imperials who would be incentivized to accept that there is a large ab-human presence as opposed to a large alien presence. And there are humans who would be extremely loath to include this many ab-humans into the categorization and into what is acceptable because of their incentives and proclivities. And we'll leave it at that. So, I think that will be the very last question I answer, because at this point we are getting up in there in the minutes. So, let me think. Was there any last thing, any last ground, any last words I needed to cover with you guys? I may be taking a break kind of soon. I'm feeling a little worn down. Though I don't think I'm taking the break yet. I think I can I think I can keep going, and who knows, I might even work through it and it doesn't bug me. But there have been just a few things occurring in life that have been distracting me from things like this, which of course are the most important things. I don't think anyone would deny that, right? So, I may take a break a little later on. Go ahead and keep an eye out for that, or just, be anticipating that might happen, so you're not too disappointed should it happen. But that aside, I think that I will wish you an excellent day, an even better week. Remember to appreciate the people who are important to you in your life. Remember to give them a call. Remember to keep them in your life. They won't always be there. And as always, I'll see you next time.
Okay, guys, that's it with Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K, Episode 18, A Blue Blade in the Dark, made by AFanWithTooMuchTime. Yes, he was just answering questions in the answer question session of the video, I should say. Yeah, a lot of questions that were asked were very important. Others, like, whether Ahsoka and C-82 are going to be together, like, why? No. So that question was just, no. I'm not ready for something like that. And then also, based on what future units or regiments or, whatever department of the Imperium of Man is going to be showing itself in the Star Wars galaxy. How many Inquisitors are there? And, is the Star Wars galaxy entering into some sort of stagnancy with the technology? Personally, I say no. I say no, they're not getting stagnant. And also, AFanWithTooMuchTime is also trying to explain, saying that it's not stagnancy. Like, they're not in stagnancy. They are continuing to make brand new technology, innovation, and sometimes it's going to be a weapon of mass destruction. And we've seen the myriad of variations of weapons of mass destruction before. So yeah, many of the questions that people contributed were very interesting and valid questions to ask. And of course, AFanWithTooMuchTime came with what he knows and how he interprets things. And if you don't like the way he has structured his story, I'm saying make up your own story then. Make up your own story. If you don't believe that the warp and the force are one and the same, then you can make up your own story, and let's see if it's any good with that notion of saying that the warp is separate from the force. So yeah, a lot of questions were good. A lot of questions were a bit challenging, I could see, and yeah, AFanWithTooMuchTime went through them, and yeah, I'm satisfied. I'm really satisfied with the answers. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for tonight. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as AFanWithTooMuchTime's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I will see you guys next week. Okay? Good night.